Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be speaking about change blindness and inattentional blindness. So I'm going to begin off by differentiating between change blindness and inattentional blindness. So change blindness is when we fail to detect a change in an object or scenery. This term is recognized as the explanation for someone not detecting that change. We often see this in everyday life. For example, when you go to a restaurant and you are given a waiter who has brown hair, he looks like everybody else, and you're not paying too much attention because you're focused on eating. So during your time at the restaurant, you ask a waiter, hey, can you take my order? But he's not actually your waiter, but you didn't pay enough attention to that first waiter you were given. This is something that occurs because really there's only so many things our brain can keep track of. I know we all like to think we're the best of the best, but it just happens. So here's an example of change blindness. Can you spot the difference in these photos? I'll give you a hint. It's towards the cliff. So inattentional blindness is when you're focused on a scene, yet when something unexpected happens or it appears, we just don't recognize it. An example of this in our everyday lives is when we're driving. Have you ever gotten on your phone? Oh, you got a text and, oh, you didn't see something on the road. For example, you blow through a stop sign because you weren't able to pay attention to that new item in the road or on the street. This is something that occurs when we're participating in a cognitively demanding task, something that wants all of our attention. So something that is listed within the textbook is how we experience inattentional blindness. So there was an example about a basketball game and a gorilla. This study is done by Simon and Charbis, and it was pulled off in 1999. They found that 46% of basketball game viewers failed to recognize a gorilla that entered the middle of the scene. So how this was done is they began the watching of the basketball game. There's two teams, white and black, and during the middle, a black gorilla came out into the middle of the playing. And it is thought that those who failed to recognize it thought that he blended in and he was a basketball player because it's completely black. So within my two scholarly articles, the first one that I'm going to be talking about is how a crisis mindset activates intuitive decision processes, a role of inattentional blindness. And this discusses the several factors that contribute to inattentional blindness. One of the experiments is linked to higher amounts of inattentional blindness during crisis. And the second experience looks at the connection between inattentional blindness and intuitive decisions. So some key points from this article are stress leads to less awareness. Essentially, we don't consider every factor during a crisis. Due to this, in these situations, people rely on their intuition to make a decision because of the amount of cognitive demand that we experience. And think about it. When you're experiencing stress, you want to make a decision quick so you can get away from the stress, so you can feel relieved. Crisis equals higher inner focus. People have higher forms of intuition when they're faced with a crisis. You can't always look at the little details. So here are some images that I pulled from the article. So starting off with the way they participated in one of the experiments, they had some participators choose from a drawer, like a game drawer, and they had them make unexpected decisions. And typically the trials were unexpected and they were quick and they had to make a decision. Some of the people were triggered by crisis words, so they felt crisis, and then some of them were just experiencing everyday emotions. So those experiencing crisis had about 54.55% of inattentional blindness compared to those who were calm and in a relative state, and they experienced 30.51% of inattentional blindness. And as you can see from this graph, those who are in more crisis do typically base their decisions on intuition rather than looking at every little detail to make sense of the problem. In a separate article titled Perceptual Load Affects Change Blindness in a Real-World Interaction, this speaks about if a person experiences perceptual load, then in the end, they're more likely to experience change blindness. So perceptual load is the amount of attention and stimuli, or attention you're applying to stimuli. When one is focused and paying attention to a task, it's less likely to experience change blindness. However, the opposite occurs for those paying less attention. The forms of stimuli that people can view also can interfere with your perception. So if you're looking at something that's really busy, has lots of colors, lots of things, there's more to pay attention. So you're likely to experience less awareness of the little details. Rather, if you're in a plain environment. One of the experiments that they had in this article is they had people enter this room. There's two versions of it, as you can see. You have the first one, which is plain. It's neutral. It's a desk and a divider. And then on the other side, you have a room that's filled with all different types of colors and posters and things that they can pay attention to or fiddle with. In this room, they also have low music playing. So they also have two people that switch in and out for this survey. So one will step behind the divider and one will pop out. And the goal is to see if the people are able to realize this change in surveyors as they're paying attention to the environment. And it was shown that about 67% didn't actually realize that they switched. But that population was primarily based in the busy room. Those that had a neutral room where they didn't have much to pay attention to often recognized the change because they were more focused on her when they were able to look at something. And that is it for my presentation on change blindness and intentional blindness. Thank you guys for listening. Here are my references, and I hope you guys have a great day. I stop the record. Mama wanna mambo, mambo. Mama wanna mambo, mambo. Baby, where do we go? We go somewhere that you don't know.